Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's more wrestling podcast with the Getting Over guys. And the reason I say more is because this is the second podcast, kind of in as many days, I guess. You'll see that this will be coming up at the same time as the previous Getting Over podcast. That's because we've got a lot of wrestling people, got a lot to get through, got to get those podcasts going. There'll be another one in a few days, so make sure you tune in for that one as well. So yeah, the Getting Over boys have got all the wrestling information and news for you. So let's see what they've got to say about the upcoming WWE pay-per-view. So here we go. This is CookieCast Getting Over.
Hello once again, we are back. Welcome along, ladies and gentlemen. This is Getting Over on CookieCast, episode 21. I don't know if we mentioned the episode number last time, but yeah, it was our last episode was our 20th go at this, and this is number 21, and we are here once again with Mr. Matthew Moore. Good evening. Mr. Andy Cook.
Hello!
And Mr. Paul Williams.
Good evening.
Or good morning, depending on when you listen.
Morning. Depending on when you're listening to this, obviously.
So, as always, we kick off the podcast with a little bit of talk about the predictions title. If you haven't listened to the Takeover 30 episode, you won't know that I managed to retain the title, which is currently sat on the wall behind me. If you can't see this, go and watch us on YouTube.
Don't forget to subscribe while you're there.
Exactly, and then pause this now, go back and listen to the Takeover 30 episode, watch Takeover 30, and then come back. We won't mind, we'll wait for a bit. But yeah, as we've got two pay-per-views this weekend, we're going to combine the scores, I guess, from Takeover 30 and SummerSlam. So there will be a bumper amount of points available to see who can prize the title from my hands. No, thank you. So yeah, so we've got no results to go through. So I guess we should get to the talking points that have come up in main roster WWE since Extreme Rules, which was the last time we talked about one of their pay-per-views. So last time out, we had this whole deal with Apollo Crews versus MVP for the United States title. We all made predictions in good faith, as we would, and match never happened, did it? So that was the predictions off to a fantastic start. Apparently, there was like a storyline injury, but it was reported that Crews was unwell. Whether it was the COVID or whether it was not the COVID, we are not entirely sure, but we did get the match eventually on Raw shortly after. MVP claimed a distraction from some flickering lights whilst Apollo took the win and the shiny new United States title with him. So these flickering lights have continued since, and all over that broadcast and every main roster broadcast since, thanks to this trail of destruction known by that's been caused by this new faction that have come to be known as Retribution. Interestingly, no interruptions on NXT programming yet. To me, that would probably lead us to believe that it might well be made up of NXT roster members. Anybody seen any of that?
I've seen, bits and bobs of it, and there's obviously lots of rumour about different people who it is and stuff like that.
Any thoughts on who it might be though from NXT? Because it feels a bit like they've gone with it, but like, I think the people who have been turning up weekly on like Raw and SmackDown aren't necessarily the same people.
No. Like,
show to show. It's like, they're all in masks, so I guess that helps because they could just drop anyone in it last second, but I don't know, I'm not even sure who I'd like it to be.
Well, there was a lot of stuff, there was talk of it being the way that Punk got reintroduced, wasn't it? Because he put out a tweet that said, I think he was talking about the Mysterio Rollins storyline, and then said something like blah blah blah. Well, that's how I'd get my retribution, or something like that. And everyone was like, oh my god, he said retribution. It's got to be in. It's got to be in. It's got to be linked.
But like, is that not the tweet that's gone out every time CM Punk has so much as half mentioned wrestling in the last 5 years? Not gonna lie, that I'm down with that. That's fine. That would bring a lot of people in as well, I think.
I heard something interesting about CM Punk, which I'm pretty sure Paul has told me previously. I was listening to a podcast this evening. CM Punk wrote for Marvel at one point. And he wrote a particular character which was played in a Marvel film by a wrestler. I believe. I'm just in the midst of Googling that to make sure that is correct. But
now that narrows that down massively then, because it's either got to be Batista or it's got to be your mate. But mind you, that's not Marvel, is it? It's DC that T'other Youth is in.
T'other Youth?
Yeah, welcome to Yorkshire, the land of Ridge Holland now. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
We've done it.
Kiss Dwayne is going to be Black Adam, isn't he? Oh, there you go. Drax, the galaxy's best detective. Seems odd.
By CM Punk. So that was true.
I love that it was by CM Punk as well, and not by Phil Brooks.
No, his name. He changed his name, didn't he? Or for copyright purposes.
Bear in mind, when I said I'm not sure if that's true, it would have been a stretch if it wasn't true, because the podcast I was listening to was with Drax the Destroyer himself. So if it hadn't been true, I'd have been a bit like, really? Funnily enough, that opens up for my my possible Ready to Grumble.
Ooh, well. Somebody get a timer.
It doesn't have to be now.
Why not?
I'm more, well, if you want.
Let's throw it in. It has been mentioned. We had no grumbles last time out, so we need to get them off our chest nice.
Let's get all the juicy grumbles.
Right, 30 seconds on that clock.
Go!
So, I was listening to a podcast with Dave Batista himself, where he was talking about the fact that the reason that he left wrestling was to pursue a career in acting. That's what he wanted to do. That's where he went with his time. But it was all because the company wouldn't give him the film opportunities that he wanted. So he ended up leaving because they wouldn't give him what he wanted. There was more to that, but I didn't have to.
Go on, well, let's make the exception. Go on, get it on.
So there was this whole thing. There was a whole thing about John Cena, and they just kept giving John Cena like film role after film role after film role, and Batista was like, "Well, that's what I want to do. So can I have that opportunity?" And they were like, "No." He's like, "But I should get the same opportunities as anyone else." They're like, obviously John Cena's a big seller, this, that and the other. And it was something to do with Triple H. There was a point where they was sort of hinting that he could have had a role, and right at the last minute, Vince said to him, "We don't think you're a big enough draw." Bear in mind that, as he put it, he was one of the biggest names in the company at that point in time, behind Cena. They were like, "We don't think you're a big enough draw, we're going to give the role to Triple H." So he was like, okay, let his contract run out, and they didn't believe that he was going to go. And the day before, Vince was like, "You're not really going to let this happen, are you?" He's like, "Yeah, you won't give me what I want." And it's just it's another of these stories where somebody's come out saying, the company didn't give me what I wanted, and then not in like a petulant child kind of way, more in a, I can do more for you, why aren't you doing more for me? And instead, they let him walk away. And admittedly, he, according to him, he spent 3 years going through, like, it was just this downward trajectory. The IRS turned up, took all of his money. He couldn't get a film role or any acting role for love the money, and was just broke and in this position. And then he got, I'm not sure if he got the part of Drax. That might have been his actual. I'm not sure if that was his first role.
Did he do that, or did he do Bond first?
Now that is a question, because he has had a couple of big ones in the sense of, obviously Drax is his main thing, and now that he's been in a MCU film, is set for life regardless. But and then obviously Bond. But if anybody's ever seen that film, that Stuber that they did,
he was talking about that on the podcast.
Yeah, please don't waste your time. But if you do want a crap film to watch that's so bad it's actually good, go with that one that he did where he blew up Upton Park, because that was whatever that was called.
Final Score?
That was quite funny. Like, it was a terrible film, but like I say, it was so bad it was actually like good in that respect.
Has he got Pierce Brosnan in that?
Yeah, as a Russian man, if I remember rightly.
Wow.
It's like proper full-on role. It's like, first I'll be quintessential James Bond English-speaking man to being a Bond villain, essentially.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I can't imagine Bond having the same gravitas if he was like, I will decide to blow up Upton Park. Everyone would be like, go on then.
No, I know what it was. He got he's listed as having a film that I can't say I've heard of, but he's sort of his major-ish role, his sort of starting role was he had one episode of Smallville, which tied in because the podcast I was listening to was a guy from Smallville, and then he'd sort of gone from there, and then he's just had like bit parts in various things. There's a couple of small films. He's probably his major film role to start the ball rolling. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Man with the Iron Fists. He's brass body in that. And he's very good in it. But then Drax is his first major film role, 2014. So yeah, very one of those. I would heartily recommend it as a podcast because it was a very interesting listen. One of those people that is not what you would expect. Really is not what you would expect, and that comes a lot from like what he looks like, I guess. He even described himself as a gorilla. But yeah, very, very interesting guy.
He's a good follow on Twitter as well because he's quite funny. He's not shy around the president either.
Trump, doesn't he?
Yeah, it is funny though. It's good. So we've mentioned about the interruptions to Raw that have been happening over the last week or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long it's been now. As a result of the interruptions, they deemed it necessary to check the security footage, which has caught Zelina Vega in the act of poisoning one of the drinks of the Street Profits. Obviously storyline. Montez Ford was the man in question, who then collapsed mid-match. She initially denied any involvement, but after the checking of the footage, it obviously showed her up to be, but it's just building to the fact that it's basically Street Profits versus Andrade and Angel Garza at SummerSlam for the Raw Tag titles. I mean, not overly looking forward to it on the basis that we've probably seen this match on Raw since lockdown started, so hopefully this will finally be the payoff to that whole saga and we get some fresh tag team matchups, because that would be the ultimate winning situation out of all of this.
Please,
along the theme of interruptions to regular programming, We've also seen the introduction of Raw Underground. Matt's looking disturbed by this already. The mere mention of this. In the States, it begins at 10 o'clock because obviously edgy shit happens at 10 o'clock in America. But it's essentially Fight Club for wrestlers. For those of you that haven't seen it, there's no ropes, no rules. Fight until you can't is essentially it. But it's been credited to Shane McMahon. I'd say Shane McMahon watches a lot of other stuff other than WWE because I'm not sure how new of a concept it is. But to its credit, it probably had a very ropey start, despite the no ropes thing. And since then, though, it has been used to highlight some of the undercards of people like Dolph Ziggler. Yes, I am classing him in the undercard. The Viking Raiders, Shayna Baszler, but it's also been used to introduce some new names as well. Dabba-Kato is a name that I'm guessing that Andy will probably look at me blankly for. There we go. And people like Riddick Moss and Arturo Ruas, which Arturo Ruas.
That's easy for you to say.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Do you usually spit something out or something there?
I'm having an episode. I'm sorry, gents. So, has anybody seen any of this Raw Underground business? What does anybody think to that?
Just the clips that I've seen on Twitter, really. It seems it smacks very much at the moment of they're just doing that. Let's just get a huge handful of shit, throw it at the wall, and see what sticks.
Mm-hmm.
It seems desperation at this point because they're hemorrhaging viewers each week. It's not good.
It kind of smacked of right. We need to get a McMahon back on TV. Nobody kind of hates Shane as much as they hate everybody else, but we can't put him in the ring because that'll really piss people off. So let's put him in a cupboard somewhere.
Put him in the cupboard under the stairs.
I mean,
yeah, Robbie McMahon. Yeah.
Feed him paint through the door.
It was like the first week. It was like there's all this outrage because they had dancers. Paul was probably asleep after they were on, and it just didn't have like. It didn't have, and that was like so it's kind of got some more kind of names that you recognise. But I don't know, if you're going to do something different, make sure it's really different, and it's not. It's bad wrestling.
I think they have tried to do it differently, but I think. Maybe this says more about me. I mean, as you guys might know, like I think what annoys me about it is that there's not like any kind of proper structure to it. So it's like, right, these two big guys, they're gonna fight. Oh, that was a big punch. Shane McMahon says that's the end, so that's the end. Yet other two are allowed to have a bit of a scrap, roll around, like go all around their broom cupboard having a fight. But yet that's all right because Shane McMahon didn't tell them to stop. Yet. Like, they've had maybe 10 minutes at it, whereas the big dude got one punch and the other guy could have got back. Anyway, it's like, it just seems a bit... I think they wanted to feel like chaos, but unless you're going to have, like, a way of, like, a clear winner, rather than just Shane McMahon throwing in a towel for everybody, like you say, do that bit properly or not bother.
It just, it's 10 o'clock, it's time for Raw Underground, and you kind of just, like... It's still PC. Still PG kind of thing. It's still, it's nothing. And we've talked about it. I don't want to see people getting the shit beaten out of them. It's why I don't watch MMA. It's even boxing gets a little bit too much for me personally. But if you're gonna kind of present it as being something, you 10 o'clock, you're going to want to watch this kind of thing, then it's got to be something that you think, you look at it, you go, I don't give a shit about 90% of the people who are on here. It'd be quite interesting to see Dolph Ziggler have a different role. Obviously, is it Ivar against Dolph Ziggler next week? So they kind of start the 4 matches from it, and I don't want to you don't want to shit all over it after 2 weeks, but I just think they needed a different person presenting it, because obviously it kind of creeps up on you as you get. But I'm 38, so I'm not in my 50s like Shane McMahon, and I wouldn't be a cool presenter for something like that. You need to get somebody else. I think it looked a bit better with MVP and Bobby Lashley. I think it looked a bit tougher and a bit grittier with them kind of at the end of the first kind of iteration of it. I just don't think Shane McMahon dressed like what he obviously thinks a 20-year-old dresses like, turning up and dabbing up the security guard and be like, it's 10 o'clock, it's time for Raw Underground, and people going, oh yeah, Shane McMahon. You're like, no, stop it. We need to get. It needs. I don't know who they could get to present it. And obviously they seem to think they need a McMahon on television, but there must be a better way of.
I think the worst thing about it for me is that the whole intro into it every time that you say, oh, it's 10. It's when he goes up to that doorman and he's like, would you mind? He's a doorman, mate. That's what he's there for. Like, you don't need to ask him.
It reminds me of really shit Saturday children's television. That's what.
Oh yeah, like we said, the broom cupboard. It's like somebody's had a smoke and after they've watched Fight Club, they've then stumbled across Andy Peters on YouTube.
But it's like, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. It's time for SMTV Live or whatever it was when we were kids. It's like, it's just. I don't think it's a good idea. But to make it a better idea, it needs refining. I just don't think it's.
It's not been great, but I mean, it's not been so bad that like it makes your eyes bleed watching it. But Rey Mysterio, on the other hand, apparently lost an eye at Extreme Rules, but has managed to find it again in the last fortnight because he was back on Raw this last week.
We don't know that mesh.
Well, it's either that or he's got a keen interest in the Fly film, because that's what his new mask looks like. But they pulled this whole thing about the magic of surgery and all the rest of it, and it hadn't detached his retina entirely; it just popped his eye out a little bit. Okay, we knew it was going to be garbage in terms of how they finished it. It was terrible, but I will say at least Miz and Morrison got a funny section out of it the week after. Did you guys see any of this from the SmackDown web? So Ray loses his eye, and Rollins immediately had seen what he'd done in the match at Extreme Rules and disappeared off to the other side of the ring and physically vomited everywhere about 3 times. Then Miz and Morrison were doing an interview segment on their dirt sheet bit on SmackDown the week after, and I think they were, if I remember rightly, they were interviewing Naomi, and the comment came up about it. Does it make you sick? But then how sick, on the Seth Rollins scale, how sick does it make you? And it had like 5 different stars with the different stages of Rollins vomiting at ringside, which was, I mean, it's childish humour, but I enjoyed it. It was funny. So we're talking about Mysterio, but since Extreme Rules, his son Dominic has finally, in the world of the television set, signed his WWE contract. Not only has he signed a contract to be a WWE superstar, he has signed a match contract for a street fight at SummerSlam with a Monday Night Messiah, Seth Rollins, looking to avenge his father's eyeball. So Dominic will make his debut in ring at an event whereby he made his own kind of in-ring debut, I guess, many moons ago as a child, because it was 2005. That makes me feel so old. Where Eddie Guerrero fought Rey Mysterio for the custody young Dominic at the time. Strange how things work out, right? Like in terms of SummerSlam then and SummerSlam now. It's almost as if they like had written it or something. But yeah, that's coming up this weekend. We've also got 3 women's matches on the card this weekend, which element of surprise in the voice there, because whilst we have had the whole women's revolution stuff going on, it seems to have been on the back burner a little bit of late, especially since Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch's departure, as we've talked about previously. But Sasha was involved in a no contest at Extreme Rules with Asuka for the Raw Women's title, but then became 2 belts banked shortly afterwards by capturing the title in a no DQ victory. Asuka was basically distracted by Bayley. There was a count out. Banks won by nefarious means, if you've not seen this already. We also had Kairi Sane retiring as part of that storyline. But that's left Asuka to take on both Bayley and Asuka on her own. Well, at SummerSlam this weekend, Asuka, having earned the right to face Sasha by beating Bayley, then entered herself into a battle royal to take on Bayley for her title as well. So it's the whole confusing setup. But bottom line is, Asuka's got 2 singles matches this week against Bayley and Sasha for their respective titles. Paul's obviously repping Bayley tonight big time with his t-shirt there. The podcast's biggest Bayley fan, I think it's clear to say. Have you seen any of this, Paul? What do you think about your girl, as it were?
Probably about time she loses the belt, isn't it?
Well, they've uttered the immortal statistic of she's had the belt for 300 days plus now, so we all know what that means. The third match, women's match on the card, is probably one of the wildest stipulations that WWE throw in, and we haven't had one for quite some time, but hair versus hair match. There has been a women's hair versus hair match, because I think, if I remember right, the last one was Molly Holly Victoria at WrestleMania years back.
I'd say so.
So basically, the loser has their head shaved. Mandy Rose has already had a little bit of a trim at the hands of Sonya Deville, so it kind of it fed into this nicely. The build's been quite good for this one, but then weirdly, like, there was the whole thing about Sonya Deville this week as well in real life, which I know you guys have been up on. Going home one night to find a stalker on her porch where he'd broken into a house and was planning to abduct her. Did you guys all read up about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then obviously Mandy was with her as well, wasn't she?
Yeah, I was going to say it came out later on that Mandy was in the guest room or something. So.
Yeah. So it turns out it wasn't Otis that was on the porch anyway. That was planning to help out his peach at the biggest party of the summer. But yeah, a bit of a scary situation. But thankfully the guy was dealt with by the authorities, and everything seems to have worked out as probably as best as it could, given what could have happened. What else have we got? We had Braun Strowman at Extreme Rules in the street fight, absolutely not street fight, swamp fight match. Ends up in the swamp with Bray Wyatt, and as we all kind of talked about on the podcast last time, who should appear out of the swamp at the end? The Fiend. So we knew it was coming. It was a no title match at the time, but now we have got a title match this weekend where it's just getting all the merch out tonight.
He will be there.
Yes, the Fiend will be in action. Yeah, absolute shock to nobody that has come about.
What, you getting that figure? Yeah.
Well, I definitely didn't buy 2 of them as well. So yeah. So from one main roster title to another, Drew McIntyre continued his run as WWE champion, but his run is probably coming up to the biggest test of his, probably of not only his title run, but of his career in a rejuvenated Randy Orton this weekend. Despite the fact that Orton has never clashed with the Fiend up to now, it's another character who's reverted back to an older version of themselves to become more relevant, I think. And to be fair, Orton's been dishing out some decent performances for the last 6 to 8 weeks, especially with a microphone in his hand, I would say, and then starts on the old legend killer theme. They're taking out legend after legend, including one of his mentors, Ric Flair, with a big old punt to the head. I have to be careful on these podcasts. We've had the guy from the Colts, which you have to say correctly, and then also lots of punts, which you also have to say correctly. What else has gone on? We've had Andy's favourite, Big E, starting his singles career. Oh, he's happy about that. Surely you've got to be happy that 2/3 of New Day aren't on TV at the moment, though. Every cloud and all that for you.
There is that, yeah. Makes me happy.
So go on.
What's the reasoning behind this? Is Kofi injured or something?
So New Day lost the tag titles at Extreme Rules to Shinsuke Nakamura and Cesaro in a tables match. The bump that Kofi took from that to finish that match, whether he's genuinely injured or not, they had a perfect spot really to play it out, because that was a hell of a finish to that match. So yeah, Woods is still out, which his Achilles has got to be okay by now. I'm assuming he's been out for a very long time, unless there's been other complications, or it's just not risking kind of infection, I guess maybe. But Kofi's gone off with this injury after the tables match. It seemed like a good a time as any really to throw him into a good singles run. They mentioned it for a couple of weeks. They got ball rolling by having him fight Cesaro, Nakamura, Miz, Morris. Oh, that's right. All of the people who he'd been in tag team matches with over the last 4 to 5 weeks, if not longer than that. He needs to fight some singles people. Like if they're gonna push him as a singles star, put him against somebody that is a singles competitor. Surely. I am pleased for the lad, because I think a singles run is probably, definitely what he deserves. I'd love it if they put him in the Universal title picture. I don't think Andy would agree with that, but I get the feeling that they're going to aim him towards the Intercontinental at some point instead, so we shall see how that one plays out.
I always maintain this. They've missed a massive trick with it. I said it back when Kofi won the WWE Championship. The storyline for me was that Big E should have cost him the match at some point, done the turn, and then arguably you could have built one of your biggest monster heels that you could have had for a number of years, because he's got everything that a believable heel would have. He's got the size, he's got the look, he's good on the mic, he can carry a match. Everything about him to me just screams monster heel. If they pushed him correctly, he'd be over as a legit bad guy. So I just think they've missed the boat.
He's the sort of guy that if he ends up tangling with a Fiend and they revert him back to an old character, put him back to his NXT character, like the 5 count thing. I think everybody would be alright with that. But
yeah, definitely.
If they do put him towards the Intercontinental title though, Big E versus AJ Styles would be a match I'd be alright watching after the match.
Yep.
But as well, on the lines of AJ Styles in the Intercontinental Championship, we've got this weekend, before SummerSlam even starts, we've got what should be a very good main event match between Jeff Hardy and AJ Styles for the Intercontinental title. It's going to headline SmackDown. By the time that we get, we could have a new Intercontinental Champion. So it seems to be a good headline match to test out their new kit as well, which has come to be known as the WWE Thunderdome. Everybody seen this?
I've seen all the kind of hype over it and stuff like that. I've not seen the full kind of thing. I was listening to a podcast on Monday where Triple H was talking to someone, and obviously he's not going to shit on it, but he was really kind of bigging it up and kind of giving it the kind of big sell about because the guy that he's a big NBA fan and like said, oh, the NBA kind of thing, and he's like, oh no, it's better than the NBA and better than kind of what they've been doing in their bubble. But yeah, yeah.
I think we should note as well that SmackDown on Friday it's going to be the first show that's taken place outside of the Performance Centre since lockdown started. And it is just purely an effort, surely, to just freshen up the look of the show. You say you've not necessarily seen the spec of it, but they're going to not only be like the LED boards like they've had for the NBA with fans essentially virtually attending the event, but they've got they're bringing back pyro. They're going to have drone cameras, so it should feel very different. I did see a little leaked video, which all this stuff. Obviously, that floats around the dirt sheet. There is absolutely no way that those videos aren't leaked on purpose for a start, just to build excitement. But from what I've seen of it so far, the set actually looks pretty cool. And the fact that they've called it Thunderdome, it's a bit of a cheesy way in, I suppose. But they have, from what I've seen, it does look a bit like a dome within the building, and it's going to completely encompass the ring. So I'm definitely interested to see how it turns out. But yeah, they're doing that now inside the Amway Centre. It's only about half an hour away from where they are in the Performance Centre, but in this day and age it could be a 6-hour flight away. You wouldn't know any different, I guess, would you?
Yeah.
The only thing about the Thunderdome leads me to my grumble. Anybody got a timer there?
I've got a timer.
We've had belt, 2 bangs belts, and we've had Bailey Door straps. Now we've got Williams and more 2-timers. That sounds bad. Right. Right. Somebody give me them 30 seconds.
Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, so I appreciate the concept. I'm not going to shit on the concept. That is absolutely fine. But they want people to be included in this. They want to virtually bring fans back to this. I would suggest that a good portion of their fans aren't even in the States anymore and are worldwide. So what they do was they open registration at a point in time when most people on the planet are asleep apart from America. So it's open to fans around the world in the same way that Major League Baseball compete for the World Series. And I'm definitely not just bitter that I didn't get picked for it when I tried to fill out an application on it.
So is it the same week?
Is it what, sorry?
Is it going to be the same people every week, or will you say, can you apply to do?
No, so they announced it officially, I think, during Raw this past Monday. They opened registration at whatever time in the morning, so all sold out, even though it's free to do. And let's not forget, they definitely did that so they could wheel out their first time ever catchphrase 68 times in that one episode of Raw. But you register for it on a show by show basis. So, but that's not, I presume, to necessarily say that the people who get in for SmackDown aren't then included in SummerSlam, who then aren't included in there will be people. If anything, green t-shirt guy and Mr. Long-haired Jesus dude, who are always in the front row, are definitely getting on it, aren't they? And the guy with the custom painted tux, they'll definitely be on it still. If they're not on SummerSlam, I'll be absolutely shocked. But yeah, I'm interested to see what to spin it back to more of a positive. I am interested to see what they do with it. They're obviously excited about it. It's a bit of they're obviously wanting to try and bring stuff to it, for the fact that even though there's nobody actually in attendance, they still feel the need that they're going to bring back pyro and all the rest of it. So who knows? It might, if it takes off, they might decide that it's the way to go until the all clear is given entirely, and not even bring back limited attendances and stuff when they're allowed to do so. They might just wait until the full spectacle can come back in.
It's interesting how the two kind of companies are battling with this, because obviously AEW have announced that they're letting fans in for live shows. I mean, they've had some in anyway, but I'm not sure whether for the show Saturday or the following show they're going to let in. I think they said 15% of the capacity or something like that.
Yeah, the report I'd seen was that they were doing 10% for the first show as like a bit of a tester, and then if that goes alright, it'll be 15%. But I think it starts from next week.
Right. So yeah, obviously, depending on how well it goes, they'll kind of go from there, won't they?
I found it interesting though that they're doing that in that Daly's place or whatever it is. Is that attached to like the Giants?
Yeah. I think it's like I'm not sure whether it's like a warm up kind of field or what, or just like a thingy. But obviously, when they did the Stadium Stampede thing, they started in the ring in the Daly's place and then went into the football ground from there.
Because it's essentially an open air theatre as well, isn't it? Which I think helps their cause. But I don't know if is it too soon. I guess we'll find out a fortnight after the event.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
So that is basically what has been going on since the last time we all spoke about the pay-per-views. So I suppose unless anyone's got anything else they want to drop in, we better get to those predictions. Alright, I've started the card with the Raw Tag Team title match. As I said earlier on, please let this be the blow-off, and this will be the last time that we talk about these two teams facing each other for a good long time. So we've got the Street Profits defending champions against Andrade and Angel Garza, who will undoubtedly have Zelina Vega in their corner. I would suggest that probably Bianca Belair will be slotted in the corner of the Street Profits, as she has been in the storyline a little bit as well, with her husband. So yeah, Paul, do you want to kick us off on this one?
Title switch.
Okay. Any particular reason for that?
They seem to have had it for a long time and I can't remember seeing many title defences on pay-per-views. So I don't know if that means that the office hasn't got much hope for them. So might be thinking that, freshen it up a little bit, get some new faces in the belts.
Technology is letting me down at this end, boys. Okay. So Paul is going for a title change, so we've got Andrade and Angel Garza there. Matt?
I think it's going to stick with the Street Profits. I think the Angel Garza, Andrade things, I think that's going to turn into something.
Andy?
Retain from me.
What was that, sorry?
Retain.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm undecided. It's one of them. They seem to like the Street Profits a lot. I don't know. Again, it could be the fact that they've not officially, I guess, defended it in like a proper match for a while as well. I'm going to go Street Profits as well.
No, so foolish.
This is painful. Do you know what? I'm changing my mind. I'm going for Garza and Andrade. I don't know. I feel like Andrade and Garza are probably more of, even though they're more of a proper tag team, which is maybe a daft comment to make, but the Street Profits are also a bit more of like a comedy act.
Yeah.
So they've got a bit more like in the fold rather than just having to be the tag team champion. I suppose in the same way as like the New Day Cesaro Nakamura thing. I'm definitely changing. At the first, I don't know if I've ever done that before, but I'm going against my initial thoughts. I'm gonna, on a very rare occasion, agree with Paul Williams. Next match I've got listed on the card is the US title rematch. Apollo Crews as the champion defending against MVP. MVP has had Shelton Benjamin and Bobby Lashley banned from ringside after the results of this week's Raw. So we are scheduled to get a straight up one-on-one match. I'm still thinking MVP is going to win this. I was hoping that he was going to win it after last time. We got a no contest and he paraded around with the belt for a little bit. I'd be okay with it. I'm going with MVP to win.
I agree with that. I think the build has been kind of it's made him look kind of like one of them Weasley heels, but I think he's still I think he's going to win this one. I think it's going to be.
Okay. Got you down for that one then, Matt. Andy?
Part of me's feeling another retain on this one.
Okay.
Because they can always use you had everybody banned from ringside, but you still couldn't win. Sort of twist on it.
Okay. We've got you down for Apollo. And Paul, where are you going with this one?
Same as Andy on this one. I think we'll see the title stay with Mr. Crews.
It could be one of them where Apollo wins and then they switch it the night after on Raw.
Yeah,
I guess. But no,
that's where they roll in like MVP's not been able to get the job done, so they roll Lashley in for the win and put the title on him, and still have it within the stable, but put it on the power.
They've been pulling this thing out the last couple of weeks. So Shelton Benjamin's been 24/7 champion on and off, and he ended up losing it to Cedric Alexander, who they seem to be trying to recruit into their the Hurt Business, as they've officially become known. But I don't know if they're going to try and end up sort of giving them all the title at some point. So like Benjamin with the 24/7, MVP with the United States, and then push Lashley on to maybe bigger things. Or I could see the tag titles going their way as well, and MVP having the United States, or like you say, Lashley and the other two having the tag. We'll see. Hair versus hair, shall we? Andy, who is going to get shaved bald this weekend? Is it going to be Mandy Rose? Is it going to be Sonya Deville?
Mandy Rose.
To win or to get shaved?
To get shaved.
Okay, I will put you down then for a Sonya Deville win. I feel that may be an unpopular choice with Mr. Williams. Go on,
look
Paul,
at him, he's
we'll
in full agreement with me.
I'd be very surprised if obviously we've already seen Sonya Deville cut a piece of Mandy Rose's hair off, so Mandy has to get the win back, otherwise she's just a bit of a dick, really.
Pretty sure that was what they put in at the writers' meeting as well. That was the exact reason.
That's the official wording that they've put it in the programme and stuff.
So Paul is fully in the camp of one Miss Mandy Rose. Okay, I have that down. I am in a full agreement with Paul, so I'm going for Mandy Rose to win as well. Matt?
Trick as well, yeah. Mandy Rose to win.
All the points come to me. Come to me, points come to me.
Oh, that would be an unpopular choice, Andy. So, Street Fight next up on the list. I've got Dominic Mysterio's debut actual match against Seth Rollins. Rey Mysterio has been announced to be in the corner of his son, and on that note, presume we'll also get Murphy in the corner of Seth Rollins. Matt, do you want to kick us off with this one?
I think it'll be Seth Rollins. Yes, the win.
Seth the win. Okay.
Yeah.
Any reason behind that?
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, it's quite a thing, isn't it, for him? It's his first match ever, and he wins at SummerSlam against one of the top guys. I just think, I can't see them putting him over that way, kind of thing. Maybe different circumstances, but yeah, I think it's a bit much to win your first match ever, and then it's SummerSlam.
There's a bit of a rumour as well, isn't there, that Mysterio is actually the older Mysterio now. I guess I have to specify, has signed a contract extension. So I'm in agreement with you. I think Rollins will win, but I think that it'll be in the sense of there'll be a tag team match with the two Mysterios versus Rollins and Murphy at some point. And I will also go out on a further limb to say at that point that will be when Dominic turns with that. So that's where I'm going with that. Andy,
100% agree. Absolutely,
so
everything there that is nailed on.
So Seth Rollins for the win this time as well. Yeah. Paul.
Yeah.
Ooh, nobody going for points then this time.
I agree with everything they said, and I think it's like it's one of those situations where surely the only reason that Mysterio Senior. So do we now have to call him Rey Mysterio Junior Senior?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's his official title. Is it Junior Senior?
Yeah. So the only reason that he's signing a contract extension now is basically so he gives his son the run to get over, and like I don't know if it'd be a case of will he face him in like a sort of a match similar to when he first faced Guerrero back at WrestleMania 21, when it was like a sort of they were a tag team where they faced each other for sort of not like bragging rights as such, but sort of like to sort of see which was the better one in the tag team and stuff like that. So I wouldn't be surprised if they, like you say, they go into a tag team at some point and actually end up winning the belts as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens further on the line, and then you get the split teams, and then either Dominic turns heel or something, or whether it's a case of like he beats Ray and on his way out he sort of agrees to take on the legacy of the mask or whatever. But that seems a bit redundant now because everyone's seen his face, and I don't know. There's a lot of possibilities and things like that. But yeah,
I think as well would be remiss to let that go by without talking about he's quite obviously been paying some dues because he took one hell of a beating on Raw last week. If you've not seen any of the photographs from it, holy hell, like he was like to quote good old JR, like whipped like the proverbial government mule, because he had some he was bruised before the segment had even finished.
Oh god, yeah.
And we're just teeing off on him left, right. I mean, I watched a little bit of the Yankees Tampa Bay match earlier on today, and there was nowhere near as many hits as there was with them kendo sticks. Jesus. So yeah, he's definitely he's not there for the short haul. I wouldn't have thought. Now he's what he's been trained to do. So hopefully it'll be if he's half as good as his dad's been, then he'll still have a good run at it. So see how he gets on. So now I feel like we should hand straight over to our resident Bailey correspondent for the next prediction.
On you go, Andy.
SmackDown Women's title Bayley defending against Asuka. And as well, we might as well throw in, seeing as Asuka's got 2 title matches, and there probably will be some link between these 2 results, I should expect. The defence by Sasha Banks of the Raw Women's title against Asuka.
Can I just get mine out of the way straight off the bat?
Go on.
Asuka wins both titles.
That's what I was going to say.
Me too as well.
Yeah, you can't set this up to look like this and not have her win both titles. I mean, it's fairly obvious. I mean, obviously now I've said it, it won't happen. But I mean, you know, it writes itself is basically the way this one's going.
So Stu doesn't agree then, clearly.
No. So are you guys all thinking that Asuka's going to win both?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I will.
Now tell us why we're all wrong.
Right. I'm going to die on this hill. At some point, there's got to be a Bayley versus Sasha match. Has to be a Bayley versus Sasha match. I think the results of these matches very much depend on how the card is laid out and which one happens first. My inkling is that the defence of the Raw tag team, the Raw Women's title will happen first, and as such, Sasha Banks will retain with the help of Bayley. But I don't think Bayley will be able to. She'll either not do it on purpose, or she'll have some kind of interference which will prevent her from returning the favour, which will then create a bit of animosity between them, and then they'll basically build the match between them 2 from here. I think I might have said something to that effect about those 2 fighting each other on the podcast every time since WrestleMania. But this is it. This is the last time I will say it. If it does not happen, it's never happening. So just to clarify, I think Asuka will beat Bayley, but I think Sasha Banks will retain the Raw Women's title.
So that's my reasoning for them losing both is that obviously they both lose their titles. Then obviously, kind of spoilers, at Payback they've got a title match, haven't they? Title match. But in the space of a week, they've gone from having everything to nothing, and then fingers start pointing at each other and stuff like that. And you know,
I agree with that part. So again, spoilers for next week, everyone. We already know what the predictions are for the women's tag title match. But that's the other reason I don't think Asuka will win both is because it's just been a bit overkill recently with Becky 2 belts and Bayley dust straps, and now 2 belts Banks and all of it. Like, have they got any kind of alliteration they can use for A? I'm not sure. What is it in Japanese? That might be more accurate.
All belts.
Asuka! Boo! There you go.
I had to ask that question out loud, didn't I? Jesus. I just, more than anything, I just don't want them to do that. So I guess that's why I'm staying away.
They don't, but I can see it.
And as well, for the YouTube viewers, there was me saying about, I don't want anybody to have more than 1 belt. Sorry. just realised the massive irony of that statement.
With the Sasha and Bayley thing though, the cardinal sin in wrestling is never do a heel versus heel match because no one has the sympathy. So, which one of them would you turn?
Bayley.
But she's only just become a heel.
No, not really. She's had the belt 300 plus days. So she's been a heel for nearly a year now. I think they've proven in the past. That Bayley can, as a character, work as a good guy. I mean, if they revert back to an older character, NXT Bayley was the quintessential good,
Yeah, I suppose.
Sasha Banks has never worked as a good guy for me.
To me, it just seems awfully early to sort of turn her back.
Well, I guess we'll...
She seems to be getting good traction as a bad guy as well. So like, I don't know, strange.
I guess we'll find out in a few days. So join us again next week to find out who was right, because it's not going to be Paul. Title stage.
Watches all be wrong, and
yeah, exactly.
She keeps the SmackDown, and fucking Banks gets like shafted.
It could happen. I'd say for me that depends on the layout of the match, but purely for them reasons, I think it'll happen that way around. It wouldn't surprise me if the fact that she's fighting as well twice. I reckon the Raw Women's title match will kick off the main show.
Yeah.
Well, they'll try and give her that sort of like break, won't they? Unless they sort of like bring it into the storyline where it's a case of she has to end up wrestling them back to back, or they do something where whichever of the matches is first, the other champ comes out to sort of help out with the match, and it turns it into some sort of weird WrestleMania style triple threat where both belts are up grabs, but it's actually a 2 falls match.
Ooh, or just thought, based on my surmisings, could it be that the first person, so like Sasha retains, but to the point where she's injured enough not to be able to be there for the second match, and in which case she's anyway. We can keep going on that, but we have got 2 more matches left to talk about, both of them title matches. As we alluded to earlier, the Universal title match, current Universal Champion Braun Strowman versus the Fiend version of Bray Wyatt. Who do we have this time around?
Well, they've just started this new sort of Fiend-esque character for Braun, I suppose, with this like sort of new edge to him and stuff like that. Obviously shaved his head. He's got this sort of like evil laugh that he does and stuff like that. And
last week's SmackDown, essentially him and Bray having a laugh off at the end of the segment was a little bit odd. I think the key point to that one that we've not even talked about is the involvement of Alexa Bliss.
Yeah, I need to get myself more in sort of tune with that, because I still don't really understand the whole complexities of it, really. I still don't know what the full story is.
So basically, you'll know that Braun Strowman and Alexa were a tag team way back when as part of the Mixed Match Challenge. So they were Team Little Big, and they seemed to get on. They had like good chemistry. It was teased a few times about a possible romantic connection. But also on the flip side of that, we've always been teased from the Bray Wyatt side of Sister Abigail, and who is Sister Abigail? Well, during the swamp fight, it was deemed Sister Abigail made an appearance, but in the guise of Alexa Bliss, who was basically trying to convince Braun to go into the swamp. And then since then, we've had this whole, like, Braun's obviously gone full on monster mode. Like, he's gone back to the whole monster among men thing. Whether it was like a linked to him shaving his head, I'm not sure. Or maybe he was just ahead of the curve with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville. But they're basically using Alexa to show that Braun doesn't care anymore. And he's come out and said, to the point where he actually sort of lifted her above his head and threw her to the mat this past week. So rather than being a full character as yet, she's almost just been used to kind of show how much of a bad man Braun had become, rather than the guy who was playing pranks with Miz and Morrison about 2 months ago.
It's a funny one. Yeah, obviously, the kind of Alexa Bliss kind of shown to have some kind of control over the Fiend as well. Yeah,
I saw that. There was some weird interaction with them in the ring that seemed a bit. So yeah.
Yeah. So the first week the Fiend performed the Mandible Claw on Alexa Bliss, and then the second week, or the following week, it was going to be looking like much of the same, and then she reached up and touched his face, and he stopped doing it.
That's the bit I saw.
Yeah. So yeah, it's got a few more layers to come yet. I'm not sure that this chapter this weekend will be the end of their feud. I'm not sure, but in terms of where the title goes, who wants to call it?
I think it'll be a no contest thing. I just think it's gonna kind of drift out. There's not going to be a conclusion to the match.
Okay. Paul?
Part of me earlier was thinking, since he won it, they've had the one tease of Otis cashing in, and then nothing else has ever been mentioned with it. So it's got to the point where I think a lot of people that watch have just forgotten that he's even got that case now, which is probably where they want to get to. Because they want it to be, ideally, they want it to be a surprise when he does cash it in and stuff like that. He's the latest person that's ever had the case where you sort of thought initially, there's no way he's winning the title. So, I don't know, part of me wants to say that there'll be a cash-in, but is that something that they'll want to keep for when they do get fans back in, that they'll sort of keep as a quick way to get like an instant reaction, like an instant sort of pop and stuff like that.
Part of me was convinced you were going to say they'll keep that as a bit of like Money in the Bank then.
I don't know, because obviously, spoiler alert for my next pick, do they want to change both main titles on the same night? Probably not. Stick me down for Braun to retain, but
Okay.
I don't know. I'm a bit undecided on this one. I can't quite make my mind up.
I am also going for Braun Strowman, purely for the reason of what you said, that they've reintroduced this monster character and it seems a little bit like sharp. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the way that Matt said either, but I'm going to pick a winner, so I'm going for Braun. Andy?
Yeah, Braun for me. I think, like you were saying, like the introduction of this character leads more to dragging this out, and to quote Mr. Williams, I don't think hot potatoing with the title between the two of them is the answer to draw this out. You know, I've got the title, now you've got the title, now I've got it. It doesn't really make sense. I think something will happen. I don't know what, but I think something will come of this to keep this ticking over, because there's probably a lot more legs for this.
Okay, so that brings us then. We already know Paul's prediction. Oh, I'm getting a bit of feedback there from someone. Paul's prediction, he's going for Randy Orton, I'm guessing then, to beat Drew McIntyre for the WWE title. Is that right?
Yeah, but again, this is where I was sort of thinking of the Otis cash-in potential.
And that he's switching teams?
Well, yeah, because it's not a universal title contract, is it? It's just a world title contract.
Or is it even just a title contract?
Well, yeah, you've also got that as well.
He'll end up being a tag team title match. He'll cash in for it. It'll be the first time ever.
Yeah, he wants to give his boy Tucky a little bit.
Tucky!
So, you know. Yeah, part of me sort of thinks that they might do the whole Orton wins the match, but then you get the cash in because they seem to like doing that. They like to sort of like shan off the guy who's just won the title by having a guy cash in and take it from him.
It would be well out of left field, that.
Oh, massively, and it brings me back to the sort of they're throwing a load of shit at the wall to see what sticks. And if you want guaranteed numbers for people like tuning in to Raw the next day, what better than to have like a title switch that possibly people saw coming, and then an immediate cash in that people maybe didn't see coming. So then, like, it'll be more people who want to tune in the next day and see what Otis does with his newly won title and stuff like that. And are they willing to give him a run with the main belt in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty? I mean, like, if they're not sure if he's over with the crowd, what better time to sort of see if the ratings are already in the shitter as they are? Why not go like all out bust and just see what if it completely bottoms out of the ratings, if he's the title holder, or if he manages to get him a little bit of an increase and stuff like that.
I would go out on a limb and say if Otis ever wins a world title, they'll pull a Kane and he'll win it one night and he'll lose it the next. I think I get the feeling for the fact he's just been off TV. I think they feel like it was a bit of a mistake giving him it in the first place at this point.
Well, I still don't know why he won it in the first place, because I can't see the arc of, like, he's not going to turn heel by winning it if he ever does successfully cash it in, and he's not over enough as a babyface to a point where you'd think he's a legitimate sort of credible threat to anyone that's in the company. It's a really strange one. He's the weakest holder of the briefcase they've ever had for me.
Corbin.
Well, no, because at least Corbin's got the fact that he's, like, you know, a legit heel.
Stuart, come on, it's talked long enough about this now. Jesus.
Soz.
I just like to remind you, Paul, at this point as well, that he unsuccessfully cashed in that briefcase, so you know. I would have thought that the only title that Otis is a legitimate threat for at this point is the 24/7 title. Like, I can't even see him being a credible threat for the Intercontinental Championship. I think of all of this, like, whole kind of scenario with, like, lockdown and all the rest of it, he's probably the one that suffered the most, because he was building a bit of steam. Yeah. Everybody then couldn't, like, with the crowd, and then everybody couldn't go to a show, and now it's a bit like, ooh, do people still like him or not? And I think they've kept him away from TV enough after winning Money in the Bank to just completely take all the wind out of his sails. Part of me wouldn't even, like, be surprised if they were just like, oh, yeah, he's lost it at the airport, like, and he just doesn't ever cash it in. Like, I'm not.
They might end up pulling that storyline where, like, he gets tricked into putting it on the line as, like, a showing how much he cares for Mandy sort of thing, and, like, he ends up losing it that way or something. But anyway, to go back to the first question you asked me, send me down for Randy Orton to win the title.
I have done. I'm going to go on the flip side of your prediction, and I'm going for Drew to retain. I'm going to buy into a bit of stuff that I've read. I don't always like to do that, but it feels a little bit strange that we've had a couple of announcements this week about potential returns of Brock Lesnar. We've had there's the possibility, because of this whole venue switch, there's the possibility that we might get Roman Reigns coming back into the mix. But on the sly, we've also had one Mr. Bill Goldberg announce that he's actually still under contract with WWE for 2 matches. I think if it's 2 more matches or 2 matches per year for the next how many years, whatever that may be. To fit into the old legend killer business, do they bring Goldberg out this weekend for Drew to retain, like to help Drew retain the title because of this whole legend? You know, he's a legend and he doesn't like what he's done to all the other people thing. And essentially, Drew retains, sidetracks Randy Orton off for a bit of him because Orton surely would be somebody who Goldberg would want to work with. Whether Orton may feel the same is a different issue. But I could see that happening. Absolutely see that happening. So I'm going for Drew. That might happen. It might happen in another way, but I'd be okay with that if it did. So I'm going for Drew to retain. Andy, do you want to take us into the next one?
Weirdly, it feels like a long time since I've said this, and this is the reason that I'm saying this. Randall Keith Orton. However, I would like to raise a question around the potential rumours about Randall Keith making a move to NXT.
Because of this whole sort of him talking out about the leg slapping business that still keeps rearing its head.
Apparently somebody has actually asked Triple H about whether this is a likely move. Triple H has done the anything's possible, but has then gone on to talk about it's often difficult to get schedules to line up. You know, we want to make things current and this, that and the other, but also a bit of a deflection, which I don't know whether that means that there's nothing to it or somebody beat them to the punch. Don't know.
I mean, Triple H has had a week of deflecting questions though as well. So you know, just look at his comments about Velveteen Dream. We're not going to talk about it as we've said, but you know, he is quite good at deflecting questions when he needs to.
I feel there's a part of me that wants to say that Drew's still not had it for very long, but then there's a part of me that kind of wants to say that I think that maybe it's a good run at this point. And Randy Orton could just take it. But at the end of the day, there are pretty much two names that I will always pick in any match ever. And one of those names has been mentioned in the last few minutes, and Randy's the other one. So yeah, put me down for Randall Keith, please.
Okie dokie is down on the list. So Matt, final prediction of the podcast.
I think last podcast I think I said if Randy Orton wins, I'll never pick him again. I lied. Because I'll pick him. I think you know, I've said to you guys, you know, we've all said that I think Drew McIntyre's done a great job. He's a really good champion. He's really good on the mic. It's all kind of thing. But we know the 74-year-old man who runs the company gets his knickers in a twist when the ratings start to drop. And, you know, he'll put 2 and 2 together and get 5. And this whole kind of like the chosen one kind of thing that's going back and forth. And I just kind of get the feeling that they'll stick the title back on Randy for a bit and then set up Drew to chase it again.
We've talked about that before as well, but what is it going to take for him to realise the ratings are crap because not because of Drew being the champion. The ratings are crap because here's a news flash for you. We've seen the Street Profits fight the Viking Raiders and then in turn fight Angel Garza and Andrade every week since they moved to the PC.
He's not getting the message.
The question is, when is he going to realise that it's probably him that's the problem? He's
absolutely never.
He is needed to step aside for what feels like at least 10 years. He needs to move on. He needs to put some fresh blood in there, some real strong fresh blood, and then step to one side.
They put it in and then take it out again.
Yeah.
Hey!
Make a prediction.
Podcast debut from George. There was something floating around as well that said about they're looking at putting Shane in as like lead of Raw as well, or like one of the main sort of charges of Raw as a whole. Which, like, for every 2 steps forward you think they get with like somebody like Heyman has then gone, and then Pritchard, and then now they're talking about maybe Shane as well. It's like that's just the proof that he's never going to learn ever.
Oh, yeah.
He might have been involved in the background for the last sort of 12 months or so in terms of Shane, but you don't need to be in charge of it.
No.
And a source of one of the comments on the thing I'd seen was, "Oh, so that's Triple H never getting in charge then."
Yeah, that's it, isn't it?
So yeah, so I think that rounds us out anyway for the predictions. We will be back with you very shortly, next week in fact, for a bit of WWE Payback. But for the most part, enjoy this weekend, enjoy TakeOver. Again, if you've not listened to that, go back, stop what you're doing, get yourself sorted out, and then hit us up with your predictions. Let us know if you got on, and if you do pretty well, we might get you on. See if you can beat one of us. And this was mentioned off air by Andy. If that happens, if we get somebody on, if they can beat us in the predictions, I mean, I can't promise a belt as a prize, but I'm pretty sure I could come up with a prize of maybe something to the effect of like a Funko Pop, maybe. So
we could all chuck £2 in and maybe get a little something.
Yeah.
Well, if you fancy taking us on and you can beat us in the predictions, we'll get you on. If you beat us, then we'll give you some. We'll sort something out. So yeah, thanks very much for joining us, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
See you soon.
Bye.
Cheers, guys.
Woo.
Probably a good.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. There we go. You're set up now. You've got all the info that you need for the upcoming pay-per-views for the wrestling. Aren't we good to you? Yes, we are. And you can be good to us. The way you can do that is by going over to YouTube, clicking on that subscribe button, clicking for notifications, and that way you can keep up to date with what we've got for you. See? Simple. Everybody jump over to thecookiecast.com, check us out over there, and send us some love, whether that's social media, email, or a picture of you and a member of the CookieCast crew. See if you can snap a Getting Over member out in the wild. How about that? So there we go. That's it for this one. And instead of saying bye this time, I think I'm going to finish a wrestling podcast in a different way. I'm going to give you a woo!